Welcome to the 10-minute no code challenge. The future of coding is no coding at all, according to Chris Bondrath, CEO at GitHub. No coding is a skill we need to learn as effective product people. What are the rules of this video? We're going to be looking at all of the best no code tools there are on the market, and we're going to be building a real application. That means every video we're going to cover one no code app. We're going to cover 4 user stories that I have to build in only 10 minutes. Many of these tools I have looked at before and I have not built anything with. Why have I done that? So that I can replicate what it's really like using these tools for the first time. So one no code app per video. There's going to be 4 user stories we have to cover and I have to build them in 10 minutes. What are those user stories? We're going to build a really simple travel application. I want to be able to view different trips. See the first screen. I want to view the details of a single trip. Second screen. I want to go to the website of a trip. Call to action button. And finally, I want to be able to actually create my own trip and add that to the database. There are 4 key steps of any no-code application. Step 1, we need to build our interface. Right? We need to create a card and an image and a title where the title will go. Secondly, we want to create a database. So that means that where we have maybe a header that connects through to something called a trip title or trip name, for example, in the database. Thirdly, we want to be able to populate that database. If we have trip name as a data point, we're adding some examples of that already in the database, and in our example, also be able to create our own trip names. And finally, we need to add functionality. You need to be able to click through to things, maybe add a search eventually. We need to be able to save a trip when somebody creates it. For today's no-code tool, we are going to be using Budibase. A little bit more complicated to use, so I'm a bit more worried about hitting the 10-minute challenge, but we'll see what happens. But before we do that, just to review what we covered last week. So last week we tested out Adalo, really nice no-code tool, and we actually built out our full application where we can view trips, we can view an individual trip, and we can create a trip. And we gave the following rating. So, just an overview of it. Mobile, yes, we can build a mobile, and on desktop. It was super easy. I've upgraded it to 2 ticks. I was that impressed with it afterwards. We can put in external data, we can put in analytics, and it's free to use for your first app. It took us just over 10 minutes. That was largely because of the uploading of images, otherwise we would have definitely been under that. And I said that I gave it 8 out of 10. Actually, I want to upgrade it to a 9 out of 10. I love some of the clever little subtle things that Adalo does, like when you create a form, it already knows exactly, populates the input fields for you based on the type of data you're creating, such as a trip. So that was a really, really strong start by Adalo. But today we're going to be looking at Budibase. Budibase is a really cool tool. It is free, it is an open source project, and it has some really, really good deep functionality. Now it's more of a low code platform because it does need some understanding of programming. So a bit more complex, but again, the advantage of that is it allows you to do more things with it. And it ticks really almost all of the boxes. We can build mobile, we can build desktop, we can pull in external data, analytics, a load of different APIs that we can access. It's free. It's not super difficult, but it definitely requires a little bit of learning, right? I think you need some time to learn it. I've had a brief look at it before, but again, I've never built a full application with Budibase. Today's going to be the first time. Am I going to be able to build our trip app under 10 minutes? And what am I going to rate this? Good, so we have timer started and we are in Budibase. The first thing I'm going to do is just have a look at an example template, because I know it's a more complex tool. So let's just to get a feel for like how you put applications together in Budibase. We've got 3 tabs already. We've got data. So we've got a data set called lead, which has a name, email, etc. We've got users. Awesome. So first thing we can actually do, well, before that, let's check out the design, and then we can delete it and upload our own data. So we come to the home page, we have Okay, interesting. So we've got container boxes, things like titles, that's very normal. We've got something called a new data provider around a donut chart. And it looks like what that does, similar to Bubble, is that's pulling in data for us. And then that is fed into whatever the component is that it's wrapped around. Right, so see it sort of wrapped around this donut chart. Same thing here with that second one. So we obviously need a data provider, same thing here, around to pull in the data to whatever the visual component is that we're using. So why don't we do the following? We're just going to delete the screen. Apart from that, it looks a little bit more complicated than Adalo for sure, but very much understandable. So we're going to just clear the decks. In fact, what we're going to do, even easier, I'm just going to create a whole new project now that we've got a decent understanding. Right, so we can jump straight in without that mess of existing data. Okay, so it's asking me what data sources below. Look how many integrations we can bring in here. We're going to be doing a custom one. We are going to be creating something called trips, as we know. It's going to pull in all of this nice data for us. Image is an image, but it's not providing that option. So let's try text for now. And yeah, awesome. So that's pulled our data through. Right, let's get designing. It's automatically created a page called trips. Sweet. Well, that creates a new trip for us, which is just gonna change the text so we know what's going on. So it's a new trip. Awesome. So it looks like actually if we can create a new one here, and that is in a page called trips new. So if we go to trip, I'm imagining it's already populated this for us. Awesome. So now we want to change this from a table to just some way of displaying that as different cards. So what have we got here? We've got our title and we've got here where it's pulling in the data. So we actually want to change this from a table to cards. So why don't we see what we can do here now? It's creating a screen for us. We want to actually create a component. So we've got all of these options here. So let's put in a card. Yeah, and a card is got awesome. So we've got card and it's pulling in something called a title. Right, we need to make sure it's putting in the trip title. So let's call this trip card. Right, and it's already within the data provider. So we know that actually it can pull in trip data. Now, this lightning bot, I'm assuming, is where we pull in the trip data. So why don't we see what we can get here? No, so I'm going to get, let's see, trip name. Can we pull that in? Trip.name. Okay, so let's see what, I think we might have to specify where that data is coming from. And I know exactly what makes sense. We are going to delete this because it needs to be a collection of cards. So really we need a repeater. Right, because we're basically saying there's going to be lots of different cards here. So in that, sorry, whilst we're on the repeater, what data we want to pull in? We want to pull in the data provider. Yeah, we want to pull in trip data. Okay, so I think that's already done for us. Sorry, yeah, okay, so let's just change that name to avoid confusion. So we've got that thing putting in the data here. Trip data is putting in, trip table is putting in trip data, and now this repeater is putting in trip data as well. So let's put a card in. Good, and it's created 3 because we've got 3 trips. Now let's try to pull in the trip name. Okay, so new repeater, trips.trip name. Let's see what happens there. Awesome. So we pulled in the trip. Subtitle, what do we want to do? We want to put in the location. So let's see what we've got here. Awesome. Now we need to work out how images work. and we are about 6 minutes in, so we might have time. Okay, so let's go to data again, and I might leave this to not get too stuck today. So I think what we probably need to do is update the way that the image type. Okay, so we do seem to have more options. Attachment, date, time. I suspect what we need to do is pull in some external links. If I'm just going to go to Google and just test this out to see what happens. We just go image and we sort of get a random. For now, I'm just going to take this random link. Copy image address. Okay, so we've got it. Let's just test that. Okay, so let's see whether this is going to work now. I want to. I really don't want to edit this yet, so I want to edit the image link. Okay, and let's see whether that might work with our design. Okay, so back to trips we've got here. So now we can get rid of this table because we've got these nice cards now. Okay, so let's see whether we can actually pull in an image here. Oh. Clicked the wrong link. We've got our cards. Can we pull in an image? I'm gonna do the same. So let's see what happens. Awesome. Okay, great. Yeah. So all we need to do is upload those images to a server, and that makes complete sense actually, because this is a self-hosted platform. So we know how to do that. You have to upload it to a server and then use a URL rather than directly upload the images. And that's completely fine. So now what I want to do, I think we might even be there already. So we've got our trips. Just reviewing what we need to do. We can view trips. Can we click through to the trip? No, we can't do that yet. And it looks like we can create new. So why don't we test that we can actually create a new trip first. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I need to get rid of that. That's fine. That's a small thing that we could deal with in the editing. Got 1 minute left, so test trip. Just going to add some default data. We'd obviously get rid, we've got these in our data table. We'll get rid of them in the real thing, but just to test everything's working. Okay, awesome. So we've got a test trip. But yeah, we're not linking through. So how do we do that? We want to define an action. We want to, though, when we view trips in these lovely cards, we want to make something happen. So let's take the same logic we saw in the other example. So we're going to create new, and then we're going to create. So we're creating a new repeater. By the looks of it, new repeater, and then let's test this out. Okay, good. Yeah, we'll ignore that homepage. This is really our homepage, right? So we can create the trip. We know that. Can we now click through? Yes, we can. Awesome. And obviously, we would have more data here. We'd put in all the description, etc. So let's wrap it up by just adding that. So it actually comes out. So we're going to have we want to add a container. So change the format, because obviously we're doing desktop, and our wireframes were in fact this is good practice. It's nice just to show it's a little bit more complicated. Well, it is more complicated than our other tools. Okay, so this is just sitting in the middle the page, and actually I think what we need to do is probably add it to, yeah. Yeah, not fully, but okay, cool. It's getting there. We need to put this, sorry, within a data provider, of course. Why is that? So we can actually put in the relevant data. We could put it within this. Well, it's not actually a form, something we would change in this case. So let's do it within this data provider, and we are going to do not a repeater. We're just going to leave it as it is actually. So I'm going to put in, specify which data we want. Oh, sorry, I have to move myself. We are putting in trips. Awesome. And for that image, we want to put in so it keeps asking for the URL. I'm not exactly sure whether that means that's going to be a link. Is it going to be a data trips? Okay, trips data, cool. Going to be putting in a trip data. It is not. Okay, so I think it's probably because we have unnecessarily added. Yeah, this might make sense. Added too many, replicated the data provider. Let's try this. Let's see what we get here. So we should now be able to put in trip image. Okay, cool. Yeah, perfect. Okay, nice. And then below here, we want to add our trip cost. Awesome. We need to make sure, very importantly, that this is within the same area. Yeah, that's fine. So we can have our cost here. See if we can copy and paste manually. No, we have to. Nice. I'm not so worried about format. I just want to make sure we are more or less creating what we want to create. Okay, so we're putting in that trip duration. Yeah, cool. And again, format, not so bothered today. Let's put in our. In fact, I'm just going to create another container here. Yeah, okay, great. Just to separate these two things. So this is the kind of thing that is very frustrating with this kind of tool and with Bubble. Formatting can be a real headache and a massive drain on time. Good, okay, and now what we want to do is just get the title above. Perfect, there we go. Okay, good. So again, I'm not going to worry about the exact format here, but just to make sure that this is more or less correct. So we've got duration, so we could say, if we look at this data, right, we've got 7 days, for example, cost £500. New paragraph, we are going to put in that nice description. And let's put a button in. I'm going to put it in that same group actually. What's the button say? Just view website, but it is going to have an action where we go to an external link. Do a fresh data change for execute query, navigate to. I think we just probably put a random URL in, but let's see. Right, save. Great. Okay. So let's test this out. I think we might have finished. Now we're at 23 minutes, that's fine. Again, this is a much more complex product. So we can click through to an to a trip. Awesome. Can we click through to the website? Very slowly. No, something has happened there. So what have we got here? It's saying view website. The action should go to an external screen. Trigger automation. Delete row. Change. So it should be going to a new screen. Okay, there's something complex going on here. I don't want to spend more time on that because I think it's a small detail, but recapping our preview. So we can very quickly, we were able to populate this with our trips in these pre-made cards. We needed to discover how to sort of pull in, go to a screen with the current trip that we've clicked on. We can create new really easily, as we've shown here. So all in all, coming to review Budibase, complex for sure. Took 24 minutes, 24 minutes, let's say. Now, some of those issues are going to be pretty easy second time round, right? We wasted about 10 minutes trying to understand how we connect through to a trip. I suspect you would do the same if you're non-technical or even new to that product. The logic was a bit confusing. But yeah, we can build mobile and desktop easy. It's got those nice components. Is it easy to use? No, there's a lot of complexity. On the flip side, it means we can do a lot of things with that tool. A load of external data and automations we can work with. We can embed quite complex analytics actually as well with these, for example, define action. We could track an event here, send it to Mixpanel or Google Analytics, and it's free because it is open source. So what are we rating this? Well, it took about 24 minutes, right? Let's give it 24. So we're going to leave that in the red. It took a long time. What is my rating? I am going to give this a 6 out of 10. I think it is a good tool, a great tool actually, but it is one that should not be started with lightly. I think this is the kind of thing where maybe use Adalo and Glide a fair bit, and then you can start doing Budibase with some tutorials, and only if you really need that added complexity. So we'll give it 6 out of 10 at this stage. Great. And that's it for this week's 10-minute challenge. We took a little bit more than 10 minutes. Next week, we'll be looking at another very exciting tool, a bit of a competitor to Adalo. So I'll see you there.